Former Giannola ally and bootlegger, Bloody John Vitale, was ready to shake things up. Vitale ambushed the Giannolas as they went to a home in the 100 block of Orleans. When the dust settles in late 1920, both Tony and Sam Giannola, along with John Vitale, are dead, and the Giannola's top advisor, Salvatore Singing Sam Catalanati, takes control of the city's criminal empire, employing a system of geographic allocation intended to deter fighting amongst the various gangland factions. The rise of Catalanati coincided with the passage of the 18th Amendment, prohibiting the sale of alcohol in the United States and setting the stage for the formation of La Cosa Nostra. Michigan had banned alcohol 2 years before the rest of the country, so Detroit's gangsters were already experienced in bootlegging, and just across the Detroit River lay the massive whiskey factories of Ontario, Canada. These two factors combined to quickly make Detroit one of the centers of illegal alcohol in the country. In 1928, Detroit had the highest homicide rate of all the northern cities. Contract killers, hijackers, and corrupt police roamed the city at will. Under Catalanati, two young men that would come to be the founding fathers of the Detroit mob first came to prominence.
The seeds of the modern-day Detroit Mafia were sown here on the banks of the Detroit River, in areas like this off Belle Isle. Former Giannola lieutenants and future area mob leaders Black Bill Tocco and Joe Zerilli used the river and its proximity to Canada to make fortunes in the bootlegging trade. By the conclusion of Prohibition, Tocco and Zerilli had established themselves as the most powerful underworld figures in the city of Detroit.
When Catalanati died of pneumonia unexpectedly in 1930, the city erupted in violence. Zerilli and Tocco's East Side gang went to war against Chester Big Chet Lamare, a former Catalanati advisor who had spun off to form his own West Side gang for supremacy in the local underworld. By the early 20s, Lamare had established a base of operations in Hamtramck, headquartered at the Venice Cafe. Along with his partner, Angelo Mele, Lamare made Hamtramck so corrupt that in the fall of 1923, Michigan Governor Alex Grossbeck ordered detachments of the state police into Hamtramck, resulting in the arrest and eventual conviction of 31 men, including Hamtramck's mayor, for various Prohibition law violations.
Lamare fancied himself an old world don who used to walk the streets of Hamtramck, kissing babies, granting favors whenever he could, basically just playing the role of a old school Sicilian don.
The newspapers dubbed it the Crosstown Mob War, and the battle between Big Chester Lamare and the East Side gang would mark the bloodiest year in Detroit's Mafia history.
The Crosstown Mob War pitted Tocco and Zerilli's East Side gang versus Lamare's West Side gang. It was a bitter feud. The East Siders struck the first blow against Lamare's group when they got Lamare's top lieutenant, Angelo the Chairman Mele, to defect and join the East Siders. But Lamare came back with a vengeance and orchestrated the Verner Highway Fish Market murders, which was an alleged peace conference that ended up with two East Side gang members being slain. This, for a very short period of time, led many people to speculate that Lamare had won the war. Lamare even was going around town proclaiming himself the city's new mob don. This was short-lived.
Between May 31st and July 23rd of 1930, 14 men at least were slain in the Crosstown Mob War. Things came to a head on July 23rd when crusading radio journalist Gerald Buckley was murdered in the lobby of the LaSalle Hotel. The chief suspect in Buckley's murder was Pete Licavoli, leader of the River Gang that operated out of Wyandotte and were responsible for an estimated 17 killings during Prohibition. Licavoli threw his weight behind Tocco and Zerilli, along with the Jewish Purple Gang led by the Bernstein brothers, and Big Chet Lamare was gunned down in his own house, probably with the help of his own wife and two of his closest associates.
With Lamare's death, Tocco and Zerilli paved a way to power by consolidating all the city's bootlegging cartels under one umbrella that eventually became the Detroit Combination, or the Detroit Partnership, the first incarnation of La Cosa Nostra here in the Motor City.
The Detroit mob was known as the Combination, or the Partnership, because of all the criminal gangs brought together under Tocco and Zerilli's command. In 1931, Lucky Luciano formed the La Cosa Nostra Crime Commission in New York City, and Bill Tocco became the city's first godfather, naming Joe Zerilli as his underboss and second in charge. Former Lamare Lieutenant Angelo the Chairman Mealy was named the family's consigliere, or third in command. Tocco then tapped Joseph Joe Scarface Bomarito to be the family's first street boss, a position unique to and created by the Detroit Mafia. It acts as an additional buffer and extra layer of insulation between the street and the syndicate administration. Pete Licavoli, Machine Gun Pete Corrado, and Giovanni Papa John Prizziola were made captains and led the family's most important original crews. In 1936, Bill Tocco was jailed for income tax evasion, the same charge that ended Al Capone's career. Joe Zerilli is named the syndicate's new Don. After the end of Prohibition, the Detroit combination spread its tentacles into the economy, searching for new money-making opportunities. By the mid-30s, Walter Reuther's nascent UAW organization was both proverbially and literally at war with Henry Ford and his car company. Ford security chief Harry Bennett, who lived in a machine gun fortified mansion on Grosse Isle in the Detroit River, used goons provided by Pete Licavoli to battle the unions on picket lines and at the very gates of the River Rouge plant, going so far as to assault Reuther himself. Walter Reuther survived 2 assassination attempts during this period, narrowly escaping death when he was ambushed in his own house. While the founding fathers of Detroit's mob were running the rackets and moving into white-collar crime, the second generation, the so-called Mafia princes, were, unlike their counterparts anywhere else in America, going to college for business, accounting degrees, and to better help their fathers run the illegal business that had made their families rich.
A good chunk of those college degrees were acquired here on the campus of the University of Detroit Mercy on 6th and Livernois in Detroit. Little Vince Maley, the son of Joe Zerilli's underboss Angelo Maley, received his college degree from University of Notre Dame in the early 1940s. He then headed off to World War II as a part of the U.S. Army Special Forces, liberating concentration camps, as well as receiving a Purple Heart for his valor in combat. And this part of the Detroit Mafia syndicate is really unique. You'd be hard-pressed to find probably one member of a crime syndicate across the country that is college-educated. And here in Detroit, you have upwards of 5, 6 members with college business degrees. This really gives them a foot up in the game.
Despite their war heroics and college educations, the Mafia princes still had to earn their way into the family through the traditional method known as earning your bones.
Here with Adam Rafalski, the foremost authority on gangland homicides in the Detroit Mafia. The leader of the Detroit Mafia today, Jack Tocco. It's alleged by Vincent Persante, former state police head of the organized crime task force, that Jack made his bones in 1947.
It's alleged that Jack Tocco and Anthony Zerilli both took turns strangling to death a local numbers operator named Gus Andromulus.
Maybe it was a coincidence, but in the late 40s and early 50s, right around the time when the sons and nephews of the Licavoli, Zerilli, Tocco, and Corrado families were being officially made into the Detroit Mafia, a rash of gangland killings occurred. Eddie Sarkeesian was killed for robbing mob-controlled dice games. Bookmakers were killed for failing to pay tribute. And then there was the case of the Scroy brothers. Sam Scroy disappeared after going to meet Jewish gambling captain Big Maxie Stern. His brother Chris was later sent to prison for shooting Max Stern in retaliation. A few years later, on the eve of Pete Licavoli's release from prison, Chris Scroy's dismembered body was found by the police. In the 1940s, the Hazel Park horse racing track was being started by a group of Detroit area businessmen, and the Detroit family moved in to claim a share of the vast profits, both legal and illegal, to be had there.
Founding fathers Bill Tocco and Joe Zerilli purchased Hazel Park Raceway here on 9 Mile and DeQuinder as graduation presents for their 2 sons. Tony Zerilli, son of Joe Zerilli, and Jack Tocco, son of Black Bill Tocco, graduated from the University of Detroit with business degrees in the late 1940s, and as graduation presents were given the Hazel Park Raceway as something to run for the Detroit Mafia. Over much of the latter part of the 20th century, the Hazel Park Raceway was the centerpiece of the Detroit mob's legitimate interests here in Metro Detroit.
But while the Mafia princes were going directly from college and into the criminal boardroom, Other young mafiosi had to pull themselves up the ladder of success rung by rung, earning their way to power by generating millions of dollars for the family and striking fear into the streets of Detroit.
During the 1920s and 30s, this area was thriving. Eastern Market was a hub of businesses, restaurants, meat cutters, produce vendors. Anything you could want to find, you could probably find here. One of those produce vendors that worked this area in that time period was a man by the name of Giacomo Giacalone. His two sons would go on to become two of the most important figures in the history of the Detroit Mafia in the 20th century. Those two young men were Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone and his younger brother, Vito Billy Jack Giacalone.
In the Italian neighborhoods of Detroit, the Mafia was a ubiquitous presence, a part of daily life and a key source of economic opportunity. Men like Mario Fascioni from the west side and Billy Goots from the east side came into the Mafia's orbit at an early age.
You know, grew up on the east side of Detroit. There I met a fighter named Lester Felton, very good amateur. We became friends. We made a pact. He was going to teach me how to box, and I was going to teach him how to swim.
Fascioni worked as a sort of independent thief and burglar for the family, and Billy Goots became right-hand man for Sam Finazzo, the don of Detroit's boxing scene.
And one day I'm working out in the gym, and all of a sudden my trainer says to me, "Don't look now, but Sam Finazzo's here." Who the hell is Sam Finazzo, you know? So he ran the boxing for the mob out of New York, but in every state they had a lieutenant, and Sam was their lieutenant. When I got out of the ring and went to the dressing room, changed, and came out, Sam was standing with his buddies, and he's smoking that cigar. And "Why are you wasting your time with this bullshit for? Come on with me, I'll make you a lightweight champ of the world."
Fascioni's own father ushered him into the underworld by introducing him to Mafia fences and financiers for his various theft and burglary schemes.
I was from the around down by University of Detroit, Livernois, 6 Mile, Puritan.